Alrighty, so another video like this, and honestly, it's getting pretty good feedback, I will say, and I guess it's nice to talk more about my opinions. I guess for a long time, I strictly just did unboxings or reviews and reviews of collectibles, statues, video games, but I've never really gone into how I feel about a lot of things. I think I've prefaced this before. I don't want to talk about political stuff, but I do like talking about, movies, video games, collectibles, pop culture, stuff like that. So, because I'm budgeting for real, legitimately this time, and that kind of goes into my conversation for today, which is being a collector on a budget. And I use the word budget as an amalgamation of things. So, just like the last video, I wrote down some notes. But when I say being a collector on a budget, I mean like being a collector as a average, less than average, I don't know, lower middle class citizen, I guess is the best thing to say. Because a lot of people could look at all the collectibles I have and be like, oh, this motherfucker's rich. But then a lot of people would be like, that's all you have? It's honestly perspective. And I'm not trying to sit here and act like, oh, well, look at me. I'm just saying, like, I might watch a guy on YouTube and be like, oh, he's got that $3,000 collectible. Wow, he must be rich, rich beyond belief. And then people would look at mine and be like, oh, he's got whatever, this thing, that thing. I can't believe he has that. Oh, he must be made of money. It's like, huh. So that is something to consider. But I wanted to kind of talk about my experience throughout the years. I mean, I've basically been collecting since I was like in high school, middle school, kinda. I've got some old pictures. It's funny, like the first like 4 collectibles I truly had that like I kept on a shelf and maintained. But so going into the first note, I have, okay, so this is probably one of the most important parts I can say. I have not really being on a budget. So up until just now, my wife and I have actually started a legitimate budget. Before then, I mean, we had disposable income, and so I used it. As you can see, I mean, which side is it here? All this stuff, it's disposable income. And, I'll say this, I didn't write this on the notes, but I'm fortunate and privileged to have found someone, my wife, and, we both have incomes. It's combined incomes. And, we live a fairly good life. And so there's a lot of people who don't even get that privilege or, people are single, whatever. And so I can understand that privilege and that whatever word, else than privilege. But, I'm sorry, the second topic kind of goes both into this. Do not buy collectibles. Like, it says buying collectibles is not a priority. Yes, obviously pay your bills. Honestly, what's sad about that is you can go back to my video, my the unexpected addiction of Magic the Gathering. I can't remember if that's the exact name, but I mean, that was like 5 years ago. And that was me coming to the realization that before I even paid my bills, before I even really thought about food, my ass was out there buying fucking Magic cards. A lot. Like a lot. And it would get to a point like, oh, whoopsie, we need this thing. Oops, I didn't have, and this is before I met my wife, but still like, damn, like that's crazy. And, when that was happening, I was like 22, 23, or, well, no, maybe it was 7 years ago. God. It's like 2016. But yeah, I was huge into Magic the Gathering, buying cards all the time, and it was like, uh-oh, I don't have food. So that was a problem. So obviously, like, pay your bills first, please, for the love of God. Like, make sure that's all good to go. But Having said that, here is kind of like a loop in, and mind you, I'm not sponsored in any way by this company. This is my personal experience with this company, and I've really had no negative effects. So I'm going to talk about Affirm, which is basically, sorry, I got like a freaking hair. It was real windy here in Oklahoma today, but Affirm, another one of those buy now, pay later things. And I've seen people complain about those, the buy now, pay later. And, obviously you got your Dave Ramsey fucks, who are like, listen, if you can't afford it in full, don't buy it. Which I'm like, well, fuck you. Because I can't fucking buy a house in full. Who the fuck can, really? I wouldn't have been able to buy my car I drive now in full. And, before I got it, I was, it was shitty $2,000 cars every few years. And then I bought a really nice car. Well, I say really nice. It's a Honda Civic. It's just a Honda Civic. Like, I know it's built to last. So I was like, cool, this is a good investment. So there's you can be on the pro or against, whatever. I hate hearing that argument, because if you truly live like that, then, you're probably going to be miserable as fuck. But, so with Affirm, and this is subjective, collecting can be expensive. It doesn't always have to be expensive, because you could literally, you could go to Walmart and be like, oh, I'm fine with buying a whatever, or even whatever, like a collectible store, anything, and being like, oh, hey, what do you have that's kind of like $15 or less, whatever. I would say haha, go to Walmart and go buy a action figure, and I'm not really into figures anymore necessarily, but those are like $35 fucking dollars at Walmart. It's not just like, oh, let me buy a figure. No, that shit's $35. God. But when it comes to Affirm, I have used Affirm a lot. Where is it? The X Plus King Ghidorah, that was on Affirm. I'm trying to think what else, at least in this image, was on Affirm. I don't know. There's on my cube shelf. There's definitely a lot more, but that X Plus King Ghidorah was $650, $700, and so I was like, well, and on site I could only find it on Sideshow Collectibles, and they were like limited stock, almost running out, which they kind of fucking lied a little bit. So I was like, damn, I'm a huge fan of Godzilla. I have a Shin Godzilla coming soon, and so I was like, I would like at least either a Godzilla and Kong or Godzilla and King Ghidorah. Just a Godzilla and then one of the main enemies. So I was like, okay, King Ghidorah. They ended up selling out maybe 3 months later, so I wasn't super late to the party, early or whatever. But, that was an example, and the greatest, because I've done, what is it, quad pay or whatever, where it's 4 payments. The great thing about Affirm, bro, they'll literally be like, here, take 2 years to pay that off. And the interest, at least for every purchase I've done, is so low that it's amazing. And I literally, and in my head, I'm like, okay, well, and maybe this isn't the best thing to do. That's just what I do personally. I'll hit that 2-year, agreement, and then I'll pay it off in a year or less. And another benefit, it's helped my credit. We did a gym setup at home, and I did that on Affirm as well. Paid it off. My washer and dryer, I did that on Affirm. Paid it off. My credit's been going up, so you could look at it in that sense too. Hey, you know what? That's not a bad thing. Obviously, know your limits. Do not go over your limit. Think about, is this, hey, can I do this $28 a month? Okay, could I put a little bit extra? Blah, blah, blah. Please, calculate all that. I'm not saying just go do this blindly. But I've truly had really good experiences using Affirm. there was one thing where I had a problem with Affirm and Samsung together, and they wouldn't cooperate, and I was having to like talk to one to talk to the other, and that was kind of a mess. But it was one time. Basically, I bought a washer and dryer through Affirm. It came damaged, so it needed to be refunded, and so it was like, oh my god, like trying to figure that shit out. So that caused, but you know what? I've actually had another situation where I actually did refund something on Affirm, and it was real simple. It was a figure off Dark Horse Collectibles. It had no issues, so maybe this was more on Samsung's fault. But yeah, me personally, as a middle class, I think I classify as middle class. I like Affirm. You know, I don't think it's bad for collectibles and collectors, and you know, every now and then when you want to get something, you know, cool, you know, if it's within your means, cool. Another thing I have is prioritize the fandoms that you love. And so it's kind of hypocritical for me to say that because I like a lot of fandoms. And so I have like a little bit of everything. Like, so when I'm looking just behind me, I've got Star Wars Legos. I've got a Pacific Rim Gypsy Danger bust. I've got a Diablo Hellkey, Diablo. I've got a few Diablo statues, actually. I've got a Destiny Witch Queen statue, a Berserk statue. I've got Green Lantern, Yellow Lantern. I've got a Horizon Zero Dawn statue here. I've got a Horizon Zero Dawn Lego up there. I've got a Dr. Fate because I like the character figure. I've got some Gundams that way. I've got a Bionicle. You know, I've got the Venom poster. I've got Lord of the Rings swords. I've got up here, you know, the Gears of War Lancer replicas. An amalgamation of things. And so when I say that, and I'm trying to be better about it by prioritizing fandoms, because I have like from Anthem, I've got the Ranger Javelin from 3.0, and I really like the design. I really liked Anthem, so I was like, you know, I'll buy it. And so I was like, okay, but yeah, I think like my nephew likes basically like two things, and so he just buys Transformers and whatever else he likes. I can't remember, but it's so simple where it's like you just like the one thing. You know, I don't know, I just like many things. But one more thing about Affirm, I hate missing out on certain items, so I will use Affirm to pre-order things, and then usually by the time the pre-orders come, because it's like a year in advance, I'll have saved up the money, and my pre-order is saved. You know, that's a big thing. So, and a good example, the X Plus 30 centimeter Shin Godzilla. I got notified by Big Bad Toy Store that it was on pre-order. I was like, I know for a fact this is going to sell out. Bam! I set my pre-order in with Affirm, and then bam, it sells out. It's still sold out. You can't order it there. Maybe you can order it somewhere else. I don't remember seeing it on like Sideshow Collectibles, but now I have the money built up for that. So when it starts charging me for the Affirm, bam, I can just pay it. You know, and so it was nice to like have my pre-order saved and my spot in. Okay, so yeah, this, when I talk about Big Bad Toy Store, this kind of goes into, so I look on Big Bad Toy Store, Amazon, eBay, Sideshow Collectibles, and Facebook Marketplace. So what I do is I get emails from Big Bad Toy Store and Sideshow Collectibles when they have sales, deals, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Even if it's on certain items, whatever. That's also helped me. My Mass Effect helmet, I got an email. I was like, hey, you know, we saw, you know, we think that you might be interested in this. Bam, on sale. Perfect. Sideshow Collectibles I don't use as much. They, in my personal opinion, don't have that many deals, and they deal truly with more of like the high-end expensive shit. So I'm on Big Bad Toy Store a lot more, and I've bought so many things from them. So eBay, I put eBay on there because I've had a lot of good experiences on eBay where I can kind of haggle down prices with people, where like, what was it? one of the items I have in here, maybe it's that Sting sword or the Crimson Lancer replica, but it was a bid. And I was like, listen, if nobody bids on this to the price that you want, I was like, then that kind of shows me that people might not really want to buy it right now. So I was like, I will buy it from you if you reduce the price by X amount. Bam, it works. Oh, Mercari. I can't believe I forgot. Mercari. I did the same thing. You can literally, it's like a feature on Mercari where it's like, hey, I request that you reduce the price. And they can hit yes or no. And then it's like, okay. Oh, okay. There we go. Boom. And I say Facebook Marketplace and this is completely varied by where you live. And so for me, on Facebook Marketplace, so there's a guy that lives near me. He was selling the 18-inch Jungle Predator from the first Predator movie. Had the original box, had the figure. I think something had popped off, but he glued it. Couldn't notice it. Whatever. He built a custom stand for it, which was dope. He was selling it for like $80, but I just kept waiting and waiting. I noticed it wasn't selling, so it was like 60. I was like, oh, well, of course I'm gonna take that. Same guy, like 2 weeks later, that Pacific Rim bust right there, and the NECA like 18-inch Gypsy Danger figure. He's selling them both with the boxes, everything. It was like $250, I think. And mind you, that bust alone is like $180 on Amazon or like $160. The figure, bro, finding it on Amazon is like $400. And so I was like, oh, that's fantastic. That's a great deal. And every now and then I'll see people on Facebook with a great deal. So I would strongly recommend, and what I wish they would make a Facebook Marketplace app so you didn't have to have a Facebook for it, because, some people don't want to have a Facebook just to sell stuff. So there is that. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So this is something I think is not the worst recommendation. It has two branching off paths. So I put phasing out collectibles, and what I mean by that is that within like the last 8 years, roughly, this is probably my third cycle collectibles. So I had a bunch of collectibles at one time, and then due to certain situations in my life, I sold them all. Didn't have collectibles for a while. And it's so funny. There's a guy, he owns a shop not far from my work. I've known him for a long time. He was basically my go-to guy for me to sell a bunch of collectibles to. Every time something would happen, he's like, oh, okay, it's that time. I was like, yes. But yeah, then the second time, I kind of changed up what I was collecting. I was like, well, the first time I had a lot of Transformers, blah, blah, blah. This time, maybe I want more anime stuff. So I had, some cool anime stuff. Sold all that again, and then restarted. Every now and then I've thought about, phasing some stuff out. So what I mean by that is I like to check the value of my collectibles currently. And sometimes, I have the Samaritan replica from Hellboy 2, that jumped up in price brand new to like $1,000. So I was like, well, I have it out of the box, but I have the box. It's got dust on it and minor paint chipping. I was like, I feel like that could probably still sell for like $700 probably, so there's an inkling of that, but it's also such a good replica that I don't want to sell it. But obviously, if you want, a new collectible and you're like, well, if some of my things, maybe I don't care for that much, I want to sell it, go ahead. It helps you kind of recycle it, the money for a new collectible. And by the way, this Hellboy that you see right here, I got that brand new from Facebook Marketplace from this guy. Brand new, at least at the time I looked. I haven't looked at what it is now. This was like a few months ago. It was like $400 brand new in box. This guy had 2 of these brand new in the box, and he said it was, an unfortunate situation. I think it was a death in the family and it belonged to them, but He was like, and he knew it too. He was like, hey, because I had to be upfront with him. I was like, this seems a little fishy. And he's like, well, these go for like $400 right on eBay. And in my head, I'm like, well, then why are you selling it to me for $80? But I mean, I met him at my work in public, and he showed it to me. I was like, no, I mean, this is legit. And he was like, you want to buy both? And there is sadly that scumminess inside of me that's like, oh, I could go flip this, to someone and be a dickhead. I hate flipping things like I try to avoid it as much as possible, because in my heart it is like, well, if I bought this thing for this amount of money, why would I follow the market, I guess. But and maybe that's a little hypocritical with what I said earlier. Honestly, I'm not perfect in my statements. This is me. And so yeah, you know what, this kind of goes into what I was saying with the guy with the store. I've met quite a bit of people throughout my years selling collectibles, buying collectibles, adding them on Facebook and stuff. And so one guy, he opened his own store now. I was like, good for you. Like, that's cool. I like seeing that, from before the shop to now with the shop. So I think it's really cool to see. Another thing I put, and we're getting close to the end here. Looking at knockoffs. So that's more specifically if you are a Transformers collector. That's my best example I'm gonna have. I don't see any in the background here, but I have I guess just two knockoff Transformers. And my example for that is, I had thought about ordering a movie masterpiece Starscream from Revenge of the Fallen. It was a pre-order. $170 off Big Bad Toy Store. Or $160. I was like, cool. That's neat. And then I look on Reddit. People are like, well, hold on. If you're thinking about buying that, look at the knockoff version. I was like, huh? I see that's so funny, fourth party knockoff Starscream, Revenge of the Fallen. And it's oversized, so it's basically twice the size. Metal parts. I mean, people are just like glowing reviews, like, this is awesome. And it's $40 less. $120 for a bigger figure that can transform. I don't necessarily care for the fact that it transforms, but a bigger figure. And it's like, well, then why would I buy the actual licensed one when the knockoff one looks like it's actually made better and designed better? Like, that's just a no-brainer. So look at that, look at Reddit, forums, whatever, and, gauge if it's actually a good deal to buy, like, a knockoff. I have the Grimlock from Age of Extinction. I have the knockoff of that. Same thing. Dude, I got that for, like, $60 off some guy off Mercari. And it's huge. It's awesome, So, there's that. So this is a personal thing for me. Because you look around, you might see a lot of figures, kind of, but I kind of try to get off of the buying figures and more just statues. I don't give a shit to, I don't know, play with them, I guess. Like, it might be the irony of, like, well, I'm an adult, I'm not going to play with them, but I collect them. I mean, they're just nice to look at, honestly. And every now and then, the only reason I would like for a figure is maybe changing the pose up every now and then. But that's why I like buying statues. They have slight poses, stuff like that. They're easier for me to also just stand and stuff. I guess over here, you'll see the Ed 209, the Evil Dead, and those are all NECA figures. And I don't know. Break it down by that, like, I am more of a statue guy, and that's why it's more pricey. Figures are not as pricey as statues, usually. I know Hot Toys figures obviously are ridiculously expensive. But, maybe organize things like, oh, well, I want this thing from this fandom. Well, do I want a figure? Do I want a statue? Do I want a Funko Pop? Do I want a poster? Do I want this, that? And maybe they're like, okay, this and that. Kind of understand what you want. Um, the last point I will make, and this is a big point, wherever you have your collectibles, make sure you have the space. And even when buying shelves, I mean, measure everything. When you're buying collectibles, look at their measurements, because I'm basically done with space. My cube shelf here at the very top, where I have all my large figures, has enough room for a few more items. That's about it. On the wall, I guess I could move the Captain America shield and put a wall shelf there, but like I'm kind of done. And this is honestly when it gets to the point where it's like, if I want something, I'm gonna need to phase something out. So think about that. Think about space. Think about what you want. And the points I just wanted to make in this was my personal experience as someone who loves collecting and having, collectibles. Same with my movies. And just my personal experiences, and in any way, if I could try to give recommendations, assistance, I don't even know. You know, I'm not saying be like me, but and my wife, like from the day I met her, I was like, hey, like I like collecting things, I don't want, if you feel like that's embarrassing, like that's fine. Just tell me, like it's not going to hurt my feelings. I don't give a shit, honestly, because this is what I like. I don't give a fuck. Um and so yeah. Um you know, I don't know what you can take away from this, but I would honestly like to do kind of like a showing of my game room eventually. And yeah, I would love to hear other people's stories as well, like the hardships you've had to face, the sacrifices of like, well, honestly, like, just where you're at in life and what kind of collectibles you're looking forward to, or recently collectibles that you got, things like that. Like, so for me recently, and then I posted on the community post, and it's right here. I'm building, here's the manual. I'm building this, a Mold King knockoff Star Wars Lego. It's the Star Destroyer over the Jeddah City. My wife bought it for me for Christmas. It was like $150. I mean, for all of what you're getting, and I'll make a video soon, it would not be $150 if it came from Lego. So yeah, my last video, what was the greatest part about it is just getting the feedback and talking to people. That was great. So I would love to hear people's stories and like what kind of collectibles, like, if you've thought the same thing as me, like, oh, well, I need to prioritize this and that. Or, like things that you're proud that you bought because like you planned for it, you saved for it. Bam, it finally came. The feeling you get of opening that box and it's like, oh my God, I cannot believe it's here. So yeah, I'm gonna get off my soapbox and call this video good. So seriously, as always, because I've been jumping up in subscribers, like I seriously do appreciate everyone watching, interacting, liking. If they share, I have no idea if they share, but if they share, even better. I am on TikTok. I post clips of this on TikTok. I really enjoy the feedback on TikTok as well, and I appreciate anyone who's came from TikTok to here, or from here to TikTok. I need to stream a little bit more. I haven't streamed in a few days, so hopefully I can stream with a buddy of mine if he doesn't mind. So, okay. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, seriously, and I'm out.